we got to a little Indian village and we wanted to see if they had any tires. Well, they had one tire, it was the right one for our truck. Then we got to where we were. We worked a bunch of stations. Imagine that BQ5 from Uganda is pretty popular. What do we got?
Very, very good.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
That's part of your program. Okay, well then, I had a terrible time with this guy from New York. He lived on gin. I let him drive once, and then he wrecked another tire, and we went to Nairobi and got one to fix that, but anyway, so I had lots of adventures. It's a wonder I survived that expedition. One time I ran a pair of pliers in my eye. I went to Mombasa to get some Indian doctor, and he patched me up, and being young enough it healed. And then I got dysentery, and that's a good way to go from 184 to 148. So I lose weight. And then some natives were putting up a pole for antennas. It was about like a power pole. And they dropped the darn thing and it missed me about a quarter of an inch, or I wouldn't be here. Anyway, then later we all wound up in Nairobi, and that was the end of the expedition as far as what we did there.
How long a time did that all take?
We were there about 6 months.
Okay. What frequencies did you work on primarily?
We 20 meter CW and 10 meter AM. Wow, those are the AM days. We had, I never done any pileups, but man, did we ever pile up. We had the whole 10 meter band wiped out. Here's where I was doing some operating. Here's the kind of gear we had. Gaddy wanted to have us go to Kilimanjaro and do some radio work from up there. So we used these old kind of things. Well, I made a contact from Kilimanjaro down to the base camp. That was the first ham radio contact from Kilimanjaro. Wasn't great fun. There's one of the trailers that we had. There's that pole that missed me.
That's a true field day, isn't it, Bob?
Yeah. There's one of the ladies, the Maasai tribe. I really like that picture, that's kind of neat. There's the farmer's market. One here is a little bit better, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is kind of like out of Africa. This is looking down in Ngorongoro crater. And there we are on top of Kilimanjaro. There's a lot more ice then up there than there is now. It's really melting.
Global warming,
Yeah. This is a neat guy. He's one of the photographers in Errol Prince. Kobe and I one time went to New Zealand, and we stopped in Southern California and met him, and he gave us a whole gob of 8.5 by 10 black and white photographs, and those have been useful for a lot of these stories. But Gaddy wouldn't let anybody on the expedition take any pictures. He was a real whatever. Here I did my magic. The natives thought this was neat. You take a little light bulb and run it along the open wire lines where a rhombic antenna would light up at certain intervals, and the natives thought that was magic. We had a good time there. Errol and I would sit out at nighttime and sit by the fire, and we'd have a bonfire. All around us, you'd see all the lights of all the animals around us. I'm using my boat there. Unfortunately, helicopters that supported this lost all the logs, and so I never got hardly any cards back. And if any of you guys know about Romeo, the guy from Russia,
Yeah.
he sent me a letter the other day, and he said he wanted to write a story about this in Russian, but I'm not sure I want to get involved in it. Here's one of the cards from the expedition, and this is from Kenya, and here's Uganda. It was Tanganyika then, now it's Tanzania because Zanzibar combined with Tanganyika. And when I left the expedition, I stayed with VQ4 ERR. He was a famous ham in Africa. And so I stayed at his home. And then my folks lived in Arabia at that time. My dad worked for the oil company. I wanted to go see him. Well, I had to figure out how to get there. I wanted to go down the Nile through Sudan and Egypt, but it was one of those times when Americans weren't welcome in Egypt, so I had to pass on that. But then I got a hold of this Norwegian tanker that was in the harbor in Dar es Salaam. Well, the engines were bad, so I got the job of helping to paint the side of the ship and clean out the bilges, and so my Navy career didn't help much on that. Anyway, I got to know the officers, which is a big step forward. So I got to know the radio officer, and pretty soon I was at helmsman, and I steered most of the time from Africa to Arabia on that tanker. And they were short-handed, they wanted me to stay, but I wanted to visit my folks, and I didn't want to stay on a tanker either. Here's my room in Arabia. I was in Saudi Arabia 2 years, and I worked for the main station, HZA. I was a supervisor there, and they contacted airplanes and ships and people out in the desert. And then I went to the Great Arabian Desert and worked for the geology crew. It was about 140 degrees Fahrenheit out there. I didn't mind it then, I would now. And, my dad was there, and he was a wonderful photographer, so I put in a few pictures of Arabia here that he took, and they were really good. He used to work on the railroad, and so he used to know the Morse code they used on the railroad, but he was a really good photographer. And I got to go to Bahrain Island, and I got a license. And I had this little rig I put together with parts that my sister sent me. I think I run about 8 or 10 watts. And I worked one guy in California on this thing, but mostly in Europe. And there's more Arab pictures. Some of these guys sleep with their head resting on these railroad tracks. It's kind of a good way to get into trouble. I think this is a classic. My dad took that. Man, that's a really fun picture.
About what year would this be?
1948. Yeah, our expedition was the first ham expedition after the war. Here's how they do their laundry. Kind of hard in the clothes, I think. There's an albino Arab gal. This is kind of an important picture. That's Kobe and I when we were married in Florence, Italy. So that's another highlight of my life. And this ham here was I1KN. He was our best man. And I'd worked him from California. He was our first radio contact from Africa. And of course we need a lot of paperwork to be able to get married there, and he helped us out with that. So that's kind of an important picture to me. There's Kobe in bed.
Oh, no.
Don't you think I did a pretty good job?
Yes.
I didn't come for that.
This is where we bought our ring. This was the Ponte Vecchio over the Arno River. The didn't put a lot of family stuff in there. There's some offspring. Whoops. There's when we lived in California. Brian and Joyce are 2 children. Hit the wrong button. How do we get out of that? Oh. After, I'm kind of getting rusty on the dates here, but after the expedition, I came back to California, and I first worked at Stanford Research Institute. And we did a lot of good things there. If you look at your bank checks, there's numbers on the bottom, you know, for the different bank numbers. Those are all on magnetic ink. Well, that was invented at Stanford Research. And we also invented the sorting machines that the banks used to sort those checks. And they used to do everything by hand, but obviously you couldn't do that anymore. And the other thing that came out of Stanford Research is this thing, the mouse. That was invented in the same lab that I was in. I didn't do it, but I mean, the guys there did. And then after that, I came up, well, I went to Phoenix and worked for General Electric on these sorting machines. And then Byron Bennett and Don Weaver got me up here to Bozeman and to teach in the electrical engineering department. And during that time, I got a chance to go to Thailand, and so this is where I was the research director in Thailand. Well, first, we didn't know where Thailand was. We said, oh, do we want to go there? So we looked at maps and figured that out. And then we decided to go around the world, so we went by plane, first to Holland, then Italy, then Egypt, then Pakistan, then Holland. And we were there about 1.5 years. And we did all kinds of research there. I had 7 groups to work with, U.S. military, Thai military. I hired a couple of students from Montana State, and they were my helpers. One is Nick Schrauger, his dad is on the fire department, or was. And that's him right here. And so we did a lot, and we traveled a lot. I'd have to travel for research. I'd go to India and go all over India and Singapore, and Colby and I made a trip to Japan and Macau and that area. So it was really a wonderful time. I had a ham station there. I was HS1L. That's when you could figure out your own call signs. And the premier, or whatever you call him, of Thailand, he was HS1P, I think. But they don't issue those calls anymore. They're all 2x3 calls now.
You had that W7YB call way back then.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, we got YB. When I first came here in '61, we didn't have a license there, and I decided we ought to have one. Well, in the early days, they used to have XB for the radio station up there. So I applied for YB, and it seemed like we never would get it. So I wrote a letter to Mike Mansfield, and about 2 days later, we had our license. Well, it helps to know somebody. These are a few pictures of Thailand. There's temples all over the place. And they have a lot of interesting things. This was called the Elephant Roundup. Every year they have a big elephant roundup, and they have tug of wars and battles and all that sort of thing. And it used to be a good system for wartime. They would take maybe somebody from Cambodia or Vietnam and then one from Thailand, and then each would get on an elephant and have a war. And that would be the war, and whoever won that would win the war. That was pretty consistent. There's some Thai dancers. That's mainly for the tourists, but it's a really interesting country. We went one time on a trip to Angkor Wat in Cambodia, I don't think I have any pictures of that here, but, that was really interesting. You hear, go through the jungles and you see all these temples and, that was interesting. There was one of our field sites. Nick used to ride to that on an elephant to get to work. We had ionospheric sounders and we did all kinds of research. There was some of the equipment we had. There's Nick riding on his elephant. They use elephants for logging there too. They log a lot of teak. They burn a lot of teak in the steam engines too. There's lunchtime with the monks. Maybe it's dinner time, I don't know. This is a neat picture for us. Our kids went to international school there, and our daughter is here, and here's our son, and here's our driver. When we lived there, we lived the life of Riley. We had a cook and a wash girl and a driver and a gardener, and it was really good duty. And this fellow was our driver. Well, you can see, here's our son, and he's got the driver carrying a suitcase. Well, we said, let's put an end to that. We better carry your own suitcase. We saw that from him. Here's the bridge over the River Kwai. We visited all over Thailand. We went to Chiang Mai, which is up by Burma, and we went down to the south, and I go down to Singapore and Burma. And this is our daughter. She wanted a dog, but she wanted some puppies. Well, so one day she left the door open, and pretty soon we had puppies. This is from a project we had here at MSU. We had a German group from the Max Planck Institute doing ionospheric research. And we had this, they shipped these big antennas from Germany, and we set those up. And we'd write articles on the national scientific journals about what we did about ionospheric research. That was one of the ERL projects. Now we get into ham radio. There aren't many contacts on 6 meters, but these are some that I've made recently. So I got Portugal, and Poland, and I even worked Israel on 6 meters with 100 watts. But you need a super opening to do that. And these are ones I worked on 160. On 160, I have 159 countries on 160. But these are some rare ones. And this is kind of important. There were 3 people left that survived the expedition, and one was a photographer, and he had this pipe organ. He lived in Springfield, Missouri. Well, the odds of this, me seeing this are so low. That first it came from a theater in New York City, and then it came to Billings. Some ham in Billings had it in his basement, and Vernon Phillips, I think some of you know him, in Billings. He and I went and visited this ham and saw it in Billings. Well, unfortunately, the ham in Billings got electrocuted from touching amplifiers and microphones at the same time. And so this got sold, and it got sold to this photographer in Missouri. So the odds of seeing that are pretty low. So we had pipe organ music and happy hour for 3 days. That was cool. There's part of it. I've written a bunch of stories on CQ magazine, and this fellow was VQ8AD. That was the call sign up in Mauritius. Now it's 3B8AD. Well, I never got the card from him. I made a contact with him when I was in Tanganyika, VQ3HGE. and he was on Mauritius. So one time a friend of mine said, I wonder if he's still around. So I found his email, and he came back and said, yeah, you're in the log. So he and I exchanged cards after 63 years. That's a story in CQ magazine. He just passed away just recently, so we were the only two left that could do this. There's a sign I had in Arabia. The fellow that helped me do this program isn't here. I thought he would be here. Jason, he helps me with antennas. And he helped organize all these photographs that you're seeing. I couldn't have done all that without him. Anyway, he was a photographer in the Navy, and he was in the Gulf War. Then he went to Morocco and he learned Arabic. He's a great guy. He helps me a lot. Anyway, he can decipher this. It probably says the same thing that English does. And here's a few from Bridger. I managed the Bridger site for 50 years, but I decided it was time to retire. I did, but anyway, here's some pictures. There's Don Ringley. There's a couple guys you know. They were working on the air conditioning for the generator. Don Wilson and Todd. It was a big help. Here we are. We have a landing pad up there, and now it's a cement pad, but here it was a wood pad. There's our son and myself. There's the old man. There's my antennas today. There's my new transmitter. Wonder where you buy those.
Don't slip and fall in.
There's one from, I think, Peru or someplace. This is the one I have now. There's operating there. Okay, well, that's it. I've got a lot of handouts here, and I'd like to pass these around. And again, if there aren't enough of them, put your name on the front and I'll get them to you. There's one on here about Midway, and this one is kind of some list of some of the things we did in Africa. So I think I'll find that interesting too. Yeah, that's it.
I just had to follow him.
My friend here said his battery.
I